Hey there everyone, and thanks a ton for clicking on this video on Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle for the Switch. But before I begin, I'd love to thank the sponsors for this episode, Amino, one of the best apps where you can all join different communities over specific topics, movies, TV shows, games, genres of content like horror or comedy, all in their own worlds on the app itself. And by text chatting or voice chatting through your avatar, you can get a little bit lost in there. Read news, take polls and quizzes, send fan art, gameplay tips, or just hang out with new friends. It's all good. If you feel like something you like hasn't got a big enough community, it's most probably hiding somewhere on Amino, or you can make it yourself, so go and check it out today in the description below. Seriously, anything you can think of is there. Doctor Who, Pokemon, pixel art, YouTube help, anything. I jumped in briefly on the Crash Bandicoot Amino a while ago, but now I'm jumping onto the Mario one where I'm running 2 polls only on the app. One that's just for my curiosity, and one that may help me decide on a video in the future, so go and have a look, and please enjoy the video. Hey everyone, Caddy here, and who asked for this? Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle. In a world full of lifeless, characterless and annoying minions and so much lol random humor being the in thing for kids nowadays, but with every other person in the world just finding it annoying, who thought teaming up the Rabbids with Mario and making a turn-based strategy battle game out of them was in any way the right thing to do? I don't know, and to be fair, if you don't like the idea of this game on its own, I don't blame you and never wanted to touch it at all. You do your thing. I, however, was interested enough to see and give the game a look, and surprisingly enough, I found this game good. No joke, it's not mind-blowing, but it's more decent than it has any right to be. That is, at least if you can get your head past the story, which unfortunately most of the time I couldn't. Spoilers, alright, okay, nice. With many if not all Mario games, the story isn't something I usually dive into because it's not a focus, but firstly, I only ever feel the need to criticize a game's world and story if it's pushed heavily enough with cutscenes and dialogue, which this game does a lot, and secondly, with this game in particular, I think I have more of an issue with the creative angle of this team up in the first place and how every scene presented to you is structured because of that. I don't think this is an imaginative or funny team up whatsoever, and I found it a mostly pointless excuse to have the controversial Rabbids come back into the public consciousness and trying to give them any ounce of likability by meeting alongside a respected juggernaut like Mario, for as little sense that makes. And I'm fine with out there ideas that make little sense, but the game itself never once capitalizes on this team up, mostly because it just can't. There's nothing here. There's a void of funny ideas and gags that desperately feels like it needs filling from the start to the end of the game. The lol random, screaming, loud, irritating humor from the Rabbids just doesn't mesh that well with the incredibly bouncy and optimistic characters that just do everything right and take everything in their stride from Mario. You have lacking in story characters, meeting with completely no fucking story characters, and that just kind of makes it all fall flat on its face out of the gate. There's a few written gags outside the team-up premise from your companion Beepo that I found great, and many self-aware nods to how ridiculous everything is, but no matter how much they draw attention to it, it's still just a total anomaly of a concept, both for Mario and Rabbids, and is unnecessarily annoying. And I know humor and the like is totally subjective and differs from person to person, but even for a spin-off title, this does not work gracefully if you ask me. There is so little in common I can think of between these characters that I can't imagine any good, clever or funny reason for them to get together. And the game can't think of any reason either, because in the story, here's a magic helmet that meshes any random thing together, because why not? Here's a time machine of Rabbids that end up here, because why not? They steal the hat and specifically go to Mario and mesh themselves with Mario, because why not? I think my point is, if you can't sell me on the world you're trying to suck me into, no matter how absurd it is, everything just distracts me, and this game does that in that sense. Disney and Final Fantasy, extremely strange and a seemingly bottom of the barrel idea, but once you play Kingdom Hearts you can understand and see where the devs were coming from. The fairy tale aspects of each series getting wrapped up with multiple characters, universes and themes ends up breaching the ridiculousness into epic many times. I mean, yeah, it's still fucking stupid and ruins its own story with essentially children's cartoon characters dealing with the more deathly serious concepts of Final Fantasy, and it trips over itself constantly, but it does go all out with it. It's always entertaining and bombastic. But here, what? It's annoying Rayman side characters that scream a lot, mixing with a series not known for any kind of narrative or voice acting at all. I'll tell you what I was expecting at least. I mean, it's a Mario spin-off, so I would have loved a Paper Mario narrative or a Mario and Luigi narrative with that kind of whimsical, witty dialogue, but you just don't get that here. You get the mostly mute, platforming Mario mixing with the loud and basic Rabbids. I'm more annoyed at the lost potential than anything, and the only thing that saves it was that I had the chance here to blow the everlasting shit out of the little fuckers, so I'm glad the game at least gave me the chance to do that. Here's the thing though, this makes it sound like I hated this game from the beginning, but I didn't. I said this game was surprisingly good, and it is, because the gameplay alone saves it, and it saves it enough for me to recommend it to you. Like I said, it is a strategy battle game, and it really is extremely strategic to the point of me getting to game over even in World 1 and dying constantly to Boss 2. Fuck this guy, but Christ, what an awesome fight this was. If you're stuck here, just make sure you keep close to him in the first 2 phases using your strongest attacks, tank the damage because you'll inevitably take it if you are further away anyway, team jump whenever you can as Peach for constant tiny heals, and in the final phase, ignore the boss and take care of every other enemy first. You can do it, I believe in you. Anyway, yeah, strategy games aren't usually my thing, but this is one of the more fast-paced and frantic ones I've played, with tons of things happening in every turn, both passively in the background and actively with the choices you make, and the more you upgrade your characters and the more moves you unlock, the more exciting it gets. When you're behind cover, you have default 100% damage protection from the direction you're hiding behind, but halfway high cover only gives you a 50% chance of being fully protected for an extra sense of risk and randomness to each encounter, but never enough where it's annoying or you feel like the game is just teasing you. Sometimes the 50% cover can benefit you with the guarding and leave the enemies at 50% cover completely open, and sometimes it can cost you with the enemies being able to hit you or you being unable to hit the enemies in return, and with these 4 50-50 chances working alongside each other, whenever you end up in a non-ideal cover spot, it doesn't make it unfair, and instead a nice element of gambling with your skill at the same time. I mean, it's RPG elements, right? Random number generators, so I mean, it's kind of fine if it's done right, and I think it's done right here. The fact you can also use dash attacks by running into the enemies before getting behind more cover essentially gives you another free attack before your proper turn, and combining them with an opportunity to flank an enemy off from the side or behind them makes it all the more satisfying when you can kill them that way. Some power boxes like push blocks, ink blocks to stop main attacks, or glue blocks to stick you in the same place can also disguise themselves behind destructible cover, making those kinds of cover not only a risk to be destroyed but potentially give you negative status effects if you stay behind there too long, increasing the unpredictability and last minute decision aspect of the battles and moving around even more. You also get better rewards for safer and more efficient play by keeping all of your team alive and finishing each stage within a specific number of moves, which then gives you more coins to buy better weapons, which is always nice. Every battle, despite looking very similar, offers a new kind of fighting or maneuverability challenge, and in the bosses they can mix these both together pretty seamlessly. It really just feels good to line your characters into a safe yet effective place, then exploit the running move to dash into a few enemies, then into and out of pipes to increase your moving distance, jump onto a friend to clear their status effects and end up on a higher level ready to 100% attack an enemy that will then move towards you if you attack them, but then they get stopped by an auto attack from another character because they moved. And the same applies to lining or grouping up lured enemies into a spot and blowing them all to shit with a powerful area attack or have them all attack each other. It not only feels fantastic but also means you aren't as limited as you initially appear on the battlefield if you're clever about positioning, and no one battle goes the same way because of that. There's countless methods and links of moves you can do and exploit, and I was surprised about that for essentially just being XCOM for kids. The best thing I found though was having Mario interrupt an enemy during a jump. That shit looks and feels brilliant. The fact status effects change how you're positioned as well as how you attack is also a nice thing to consider, as well as knowing when's the best time to sacrifice your own team's health if you're planning on a mass heal down the line. And every character you can switch between has a different kind of attack and defense style, so it can work around nearly any encounter. Mario can bounce on enemies, Peach and Rabbid Peach are good healers, Luigi has not much health but tons of damage, etc. And you can switch between them at any time when you aren't fighting, as well as buy other weapons that all have different costs and benefits to use. I also loved how during each turn before you make it, you're given the accuracy rating of your attacks to each specific enemy within your range depending on where you choose to end up before you commit to moving there. And I love how moving the camera actually helps by revealing hidden sniping spots and tunnels to further take advantage of the level. And I'm not done yet, but can you at least see what I mean when I say there's a surprising level of strategy here? In Mario and Rabbids, seriously, the game is really fun to play, it's a fucking miracle. Anyway, it's not without its issues though, like with customizing your roster. I mean, it isn't terrible, but it is extremely lacking. Mario is by default always on your team, and you basically need someone who can heal you, meaning at best you can only swap one character depending on how leveled up they are with their upgrades and weapons. But there can be many instances of the perfect team being used for particular battles, especially in the optional challenges after you beat the story mode of the world you're in for more coins and upgrade juice. Like, I chose to upgrade a lot into movement space for some characters, which made some of the challenges a complete breeze, and then some of them I upgraded into how much damage they could do when they ran into people. So there is some kind of experimentation, but just not the best out there. It's limited, but it works. And the bosses I found all to be extremely imaginative and memorable, and Rabbid Kong, I must admit, was my favourite character of the game, if just for his animations. They got the most chuckles out of me in the whole game. Even the replay value is pretty good with the challenges in previously explored worlds, and the chances to find each hidden chapter after you beat the world for more chances chances to get better gear with more coins, which I also appreciated since you never needed to focus heavily on each character for upgrading, since whatever upgrade shoes you collect is actually shared between every single individual character for whenever you want to upgrade into them. And this really helps when you want to swap your characters around. Everyone pretty much levels up at the same time, but you can choose what attributes to level up. And the fact that weapon upgrading all comes from the same money pot of coins, meaning that's the only time you need to actually commit to leveling decisions and what you need to pick with what character, which is nice. But this is all I can really say for the majority of the gameplay. It's Rabbids. It's made more with kids in mind, and so your move list and ways to attack are nowhere near as deep as something like Fractured Butthole, but if you can understand this is aimed more at a younger audience, I'm sure you can appreciate how good the battle strategy gameplay is at its core. There's no complicated RPG elements or anything else alongside it, which I'm fine with for the target audience, but one aspect I really didn't understand was the hub world and walking around between the battles. Luckily, this isn't most of the game. It's only a relatively small part in comparison to the actual game, so I can't criticize it too harshly or say it demonizes the game as a whole, but Christ, it doesn't take away from how boring and overly simple the walking around parts are. There's a few funny sights to see with funny dialogue, to be fair, but talk about flat and uninteresting worlds that behave identically to each other and don't do anything interesting. Exploration and hidden chests are left up to the insane puzzles of finding a switch, hitting the switch, and walking back to where you just were, or getting a new power-up like breaking a block from completing a world and then go back and break the block to get past, and that's it. There's a couple, and I mean only a couple, of cool block pushing puzzles, and a few okay observational puzzles where you need to figure out if an arrangement of blocks needs mirroring or copying with another area of the world, but that's it. And if it weren't for the really valuable upgrade orbs and more guns hiding in some of the chests, I would never have bothered with any of this and treated it simply like the Mario 3D World overworld on Wii U. With no jumping, attacking, or anything else to do other than walking around, I never felt rewarded for finding shit, because despite all the efforts of the devs to hide anything or get anything out of your reach, there's only a maximum of 2 to 3 ways of reaching the item since you can only walk and click on stuff. There are parts that block your way and you just need to remember where you were blocked and not go that way. Red coin challenges are far too generously timed, and the best way I can describe this part of the game is that if Mario and Luigi RPG overworlds had no verticality, no list of power-ups to experiment with in the walking around and combat, and no vastly different types of mazes and puzzles in order for you to reach different treasure, this is exactly what it is. Again though, yeah, this is a kids game, it's aimed primarily at kids, but seriously, some of the later challenges in the actual game stumped me, later on especially. I was stuck in the strategy gameplay more than once, so why is there this huge imbalance between the exploring difficulty and actual gameplay difficulty? The walking around is not the worst I've ever played in my life, but it's such a huge contrast from the main gameplay, it's like 2 different games are going on here at the same time, and it's a little bit weird. You know what I didn't find weird though? The visuals and fantastic soundtrack. The music has the typical everybody knows it classic Kirkhope charm, and even gets away with remixing classic Mario themes in a fresh and new way for both relaxing world searching and energetic battles, whereas the visuals, despite being a little stale occasionally with the blocks everywhere from Battlegrounds, at least does all it can with the creatively lacking concept of sticking fucking Rabbids and Mario together with a magic science machine. The worlds are such a joyful and maniacal clusterfuck of Mario assets and Rabbids designs squished together in ways I could never imagine happening or even working, but it really does, and it's so colourful and insane that I loved going through these places. Piranha plants merged into desktop lamps, bullet bills stuck in giant underpads, Mario mushroom ice lollies. It's kind of like Mario Odyssey, you know, the same aesthetic we expect to see from Mario, but with things I didn't expect to see within them, which was as much of a surprise as the main chunk of the gameplay for me. I really enjoyed the stylish camera angles whenever you perform a particularly flashy move to add a lot more character to the fight, and I also like how the main Rabbids you control do actually have specific character traits, for one other positive thing to say about them, I guess. The same enemy types also look totally different to fit in with their respective world, which was a really great touch, along with the soundtrack actually being played for you by the scenery and wildlife around you, which was a level of charm I adored once I noticed it. Oh, and not that I want to spoil much of it, but the final boss, badass. In conclusion though, I mean, unfortunately the really great things Mario & Rabbids somehow manages to pull out of the bag don't forgive it massively for the many design decisions that just totally baffled me, and there is an overall tinge of missed potential for such a great game at its core. If you have a Switch, I still say you should get it. You get a lot of bang for your buck here, and I even managed to get over 22 hours or so worth of playtime of really fun and good strategy gameplay. But if you don't like the ideas of some of the stuff I mentioned, or God forbid really hate the Rabbids, you may want to think about what you're purchasing here. I give Mario & Rabbids Kingdom Battle a 7 out of 10. It's damn good. If it's your birthday today while watching this video, happy frickin' birthday to you, and please remember to stay beautiful.
Subscribe.
Hey everybody, and thanks so much for watching this video on Mario and Rabbids, and special thanks to all the names on screen right now who have helped support this channel via my Patreon page. Thank you so much, guys. You have no idea how much you're helping me through YouTube's ridiculous nonsense right now. And special thanks to all the top tier supporters: Omar Matu, Basil, Patrick Ferguson, Andy Ellis, Robert Alamshire, I Have a Portal Gun, Gamer Man, Kyle Way, Thomas Olson, Mills Kahai, Alicia Knightley, Super Spyro Fan 2010, Daniel Leon, Jane Ives, Carston, Mitchell Reed, Tiago Pereira, A.D. Thornton Smith, Oblivion Rising, Noxious, Ellen Rilpley, Kirsten B, QB, Nathan Young, and Nicole Ganara. Thank you so much, all of you guys.